3 spine-chilling true summer horrors, sinister secrets revealed in cursed encounters. Rachel's heart pounded in her chest as she drove down the dimly lit road. Shadows twisted in the fading light, creating an eerie ballet of darkness around her. Just as she rounded a bend, headlights flickered on an abandoned car, its door swinging slightly in the chilly breeze, a beckoning invitation into the unknown. She felt a chill run down her spine, a visceral warning that shouldn't be ignored. Against all her instincts, curiosity pulled her towards the woods nearby. Whispers of danger tingled at the back of her mind. Rumors swirled about Mr. Thompson, her seemingly perfect neighbor, and the sinister disappearances linked to him. She couldn't believe the gossip. The very thought made her skin crawl, but here she was, feeling that something dark lurked just out of sight. With summer upon them, Rachel desperately planned family outings, hoping to reclaim the bond with her 2 teenagers, Mia and Jake, who were slipping away into their own worlds. Yet, the suffocating heat matched the tension bubbling in the neighborhood. Jake's new smartphone began acting bizarrely, glitching, receiving messages that had no sender. A digital ghost haunting their living room, creeping closer with every passing day. Meanwhile, Mia's nightmares escalated, shadows drifting menacingly through her dreams, setting her on edge. Rachel tried to assure them it was just teenage fears, but every fleeting laugh turned to ice in her stomach as dread settled in. The neighborhood watch meeting, conversation turned grim. Missing pets, policed up patrols, and hushed murmurs echoed through the room like an impending storm. When she brought up her suspicions about Mr. Thompson, the group laughed, waving off her worries. Just a single mom overreacting, their eyes seemed to say, dismissing her fears like yesterday's trash. The authority figures, the very guardians she counted on, were unmoved. One sweltering afternoon, desperation clawed at her. The woods called to her, a haunting melody that she couldn't ignore. With Mia and Jake in tow, they ventured into the dense underbrush, the air thick and oppressive. Each step felt heavier, coils of anxiety wrapping tightly around Rachel's heart. Strange whispers trickled through the air. A rustling nearby sent a shiver racing down her spine. As they moved deeper, her intuition screamed for her to turn back. The shadows stretched longer, and then she spotted a tattered childhood drawing of her children embedded in the dirt. How had it gotten there? In horror, a realization cracked through her. This was more than family routine, it was a warped game of survival against a looming evil. They were no longer the hunters but the hunted. A snap behind a tree made her breath hitch in panic. What had once been home now felt like a prison, and she could almost feel the lurking eyes assessing their every move. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As they brushed past the gnarled trees, Rachel's mind raced through thoughts of her children. Mia's fearful whispers mingled with Jake's defiance. What was lurking out there, watching? The cadence of snapping branches echoed menacingly, closing in around them. Just as hope began to flicker, she heard it, the unmistakable voice of Mr. Thompson drifting through the trees, sweet and sinister. The game had only just begun, and in these cursed woods, the truth hung like a noose around their necks, a harbinger of betrayals yet to come. The atmosphere thickened as Rachel froze, her breath catching painfully in her throat. The voice of Mr. Thompson floated through the trees like smoke, curling and wrapping around her, suffocating the last remnants of her courage. Come out, wherever you are," he sang, his tone mocking yet soothing, like a lullaby turned dark. "What do we do?" Mia whispered, her eyes wide with fear, searching Rachel's face for answers. Jake stood taut, fists clenched, but the fire behind his defiance was dulled by uncertainty. Rachel's heart raced, and she scanned the woods for any sign of danger. The chorus of rustling leaves grew louder, each sound threatening to reveal their position. Stay close, Rachel replied, her voice trembling despite her attempt to sound calm. She dragged her children toward whatever shelter they could find in the dense trees, praying the shadows would hide them. They turned toward an ancient oak, its twisted branches cast long fingers of darkness, beckoning them to step inside the protective embrace of its thick trunk. Mia! Jake! A crack broke through the whispers, as if a trap had sprung somewhere in the depths of the forest. The urge to flee urged Rachel's feet forward, but she forced them to stay put. The chilling realization hit her: if Thompson was anywhere nearby, they would have to outwit him, not just escape. She felt the paintbrush of dread painting her thoughts, coaxing out images of what might have happened to those who'd vanished in their neighborhood. The steady rhythm of a heartbeat echoed in her ears, a frantic reminder that they were prey, invited into the realm of the hunter. Mom, what if he knows we're here? Jake whispered, barely louder than the wind. Then we can't show ourselves. We need to be quiet. Just breathe, she instructed, forcing a calm that dripped with hysteria. Each inhale felt like a gamble, each exhale a prayer for sanity as the voice called out again, slicing through the silence like a blade. Ah, come on. I just want to play. It's so much more fun when we're together. The false cheer in his voice sent icy dread streaming down Rachel's spine. Rachel's eyes flicked toward the tattered drawing in the dirt, now becoming a haunting symbol of their vulnerability. Suddenly, Jake's phone buzzed to life. The noise shattered the fragile stillness, breaking their cover. A low growl trickled through the woods, rumbling like distant thunder, and Rachel's blood ran cold. Turn it off. She hissed, panic rising as the phone continued to buzz insistently. With shaking hands, Jake swiped the screen, but nothing happened. The screen blinked. Erratically strange messages appeared, letters that she couldn't decipher, symbols that looked like warnings of something she dared not fathom. The growl grew closer, thick with malice. You shouldn't have come here. Mr. Thompson's voice trembled with delight as he stepped into view, his face unreadable, shadowed yet mesmerizing. Rachel, I've missed you. You know my game. Fear surged, knotting in Rachel's gut as the reality of their situation crashed over her. The woods weren't merely cursed, they were alive, a perverse playground where darkness toyed with families. Just as she thought of the way out, a figure darted behind her. Mia! Rachel shouted, her instincts igniting, but as she turned, the dark was consuming, everything blurred and twisted in a chaotic dance of terror. What lurked beyond the tree line? Where was Mia? And could they ever escape this nightmare? Sudden silence fell, and at the edge of the woods, a flicker of light pulsed, a glimmer of hope or the cruel spark of deception. Only one way to find out, Rachel muttered, stepping forward into the abyss. What awaited her on the other side? The moment Rachel stepped deeper into the shadows, a chill wrapped around her shoulders, squeezing tighter with each heartbeat. She could feel the forest, its ancient, twisted roots and gnarled branches, pressing in on her, almost alive, whispering secrets she was never meant to uncover. Mia! Panic shot through her veins, electrifying her senses. Frantically, Rachel turned, searching every nook and cranny in the darkness. Her heart thudded violently, drowning out the hints of the forest, a rustle here, a snap there, teasing her, taunting her, wrapping the night tighter around her family. Suddenly, a flicker of hope caught her eye. The light pulsed again, a beacon in the overwhelming darkness. Was it real? A lure set by Thompson, or perhaps a sign of Mia? With a deep breath and a pounding heart, she took a hesitant step towards it. Mom? Jake's voice trembled, barely audible above the cacophony of night sounds. What if we get lost? Rachel hesitated, her instinct to shield them battling the longing to find Mia. We want tea. We can't leave her, she insisted, though the words felt weak and unconvincing. As they ventured deeper, the air thickened with the stench of damp earth and decay, tightening her throat. The trees stood like twisted sentinels, glaring down with their ragged limbs. Every shadow shifted, every crackle of a branch made her jump as dread seeped into her bones. Mom! I think we should go back, Jake urged, his voice quaking with fear. No. We can't give in. Rachel's voice shot out, stronger than she felt. Mia needs us. But as Rachel moved forward, doubt wormed into her mind. What if she was leading them into a trap? The pulse of light flickered once more, drawing her in like a moth to a flame. It felt alive, calling her with a sweet, deceptive tone that promised safety but hinted at terror. Mia. The name fell from her lips like a prayer, desperate and raw. She could feel the dark edges of panic creeping closer, lurking behind the threads of her thoughts, tightening like a noose. Jake stepped beside her, his brows creased with worry. What if he took her somewhere? What if we're just walking into danger? Just then, the growl erupted again, not distant but close, echoing through the trees like thunder before a storm. Rachel's stomach plummeted as she spun around, her breath caught in her throat. Shoo. She hushed, raising a finger to her lips, though her own voice was too loud. The low timbre reverberated off the bark, turning to a malicious whisper. Too late, a chilling voice derided, suddenly at their backs. It was Thompson again, his silhouette cutting through the trees like a razor. You thought you could outrun me? The smile on his face was wrong, twisted in delight. It twisted the air, curling around them like a venomous serpent. Rachel's heart raced even faster. She forced her feet to step pressed against the turbulent soil, adrenaline coursing through her veins. They had to move. But before she could make a decision, shadows began swirling, creeping closer around them. The edges of her vision blurred as Rachel turned toward the light again, desperate for escape, for Mia, but it flickered wildly, teasing her sense of direction into chaos. The growl surged louder, vibrating through the very marrow of her bones. Mom, what do we do? Jake whimpered, drawing closer to her. Fear hung in the air, heavy like the dark clouds overhead. Run! Rachel shrieked, feeling the weight of terror behind them, a primal instinct taking over. She turned, yanking Jake in her wake, racing toward the light, even as it flickered like a dying star, but the darkness felt alive, angry. The shadows were no longer just shadows. They were hungry for fear, hungry for blood. The moment they reached that flicker, a piercing scream erupted through the woods, loud enough to shake the very trees. It was Mia. No. Rachel felt a surge of panic drown her. The light snapped out, darkness falling like an avalanche. Mom! Jake cried, gripping her hand with bone-crushing force. Rachel's world narrowed, the only thought that mattered was getting to Mia. But as she plunged forward into the black, a sinister laughter echoed around her, wrapping her in a cocoon of dread. What awaited them in the veins of the forest? Would they find Mia, or would the darkness consume them all? The forest roared to life with an unsettling energy, the air thick with the stench of decay, as if long-buried secrets were clawing their way back into existence. Rachel's heart raced, every beat echoing like a death knell in the oppressive silence that followed Mia's scream, her daughter's voice hanging in the air like a ghostly wail. Jake, stay close. She breathed, her voice trembling as she pulled him even tighter against her side. The laughter faded but left a glaring emptiness that felt worse than the darkness. Had it been real? Was Thompson close, ready to unleash his twisted games again? They stumbled deeper into the shadows, Rachel's mind racing with desperate thoughts. We have to find Mia. We have to. A crack underfoot made her freeze, her breath hitching. The scrape of claws on bark disturbed the silence, and she turned, eyes wide, searching the surrounding darkness, dread pooling in her stomach. The trees seemed to lean in closer, their twisted branches resembling skeletal fingers reaching out to ensnare them. Then came a whisper, delicate and sinister, weaving through the trees like a wisp of smoke. Rachel, the sound sent chills down her spine. It was Mia's voice. But it twisted and warped, fading into an icy echo. Rachel's pulse hammered in her ears, urgency clawing at her insides. Mom, I don't like this. Jake squeaked, looking up at her with frightened eyes. What if it's a trap? They wouldn't do this. Not to us. We must go, she insisted, though her insides churned with unease. Deep down, she felt the iron taste of betrayal, a nagging suspicion that maybe, just maybe, she had led them down a darker path. As they pressed on, a figure emerged from the shadows, a hazy outline that shifted like smoke. Rachel squinted, adrenaline racing through her. "Mia!" she cried again, her voice cracking with desperation. "Where are you?" But silence swallowed her words. The figure wavered, dancing in and out of view before dissolving into another shadow. Panic snaked through her veins. Her feet felt heavier with dread with every hesitant step. "Mom, please." Jake's quivering voice broke her thoughts. "I can't take this." She turned to him, the realization hitting hard. They weren't just searching for Mia, they were running blind into the unknown, into something more sinister than Thompson. "Okay, let us think," Rachel whispered, forcing herself to be calm. "We need a plan." Just then, another growl filled the air, vibrating through her bones again. This one was deep, primal, infused with a rage that chased away all coherent thoughts. It was closer now, ominous and unpredictable, the sound curling around them like a slow-moving fog. "Run!" Rachel shrieked without thinking, dragging Jake behind her, but the darkness seemed to claw at their heels, hungry and alive, reveling in their fear. Branches whipped at their skin as they ducked and weaved, desperately dodging the looming trees. But every twist and turn only led them deeper into the heart of the thicket. The sounds of the forest morphed, shifting from grasses whispering to creatures scuttling, all closing in, a cacophony of nightmares, then, a flicker not of light, but movement. Rachel caught sight of someone vanishing deeper into the bushes. The fleeting glimpse of a familiar silhouette sent both hope and dread spiraling through her. "Mia!" Her scream erupted, raw and wild, igniting the otherwise still air. "Mom!" A disembodied voice cried back, but it felt distant, spinning through the oppressive shadows like confetti scattered in a whirlwind. Desperation gripped her tight. Was Mia even there, or just another bait in Thompson's twisted game? The growl roared again, this time intermingled with a voice that sounded like her daughter's. "Help me. Please." Rachel's heart shattered at the plea, but terror gripped her throat. Beneath it all, a malevolence lingered. She could feel it wrapping around her like vines, squeezing tighter. She took a step forward. "We have to go towards her." But already she sensed that the darkness was alive, and it wanted blood. Would they ever escape? Or would they be swallowed whole by the forest's hungry maw? The sinister laughter returned, mocking her desperation, echoing all around them. In that moment, the boundaries between reality and nightmare blurred. And then it hit her like a thunderclap: they could be the hunted, running right into an elaborate trap designed to lure them deeper. What if? Rachel whispered, dread pooling as the shadows loomed larger. With the air crackling around them, the decision loomed: would they push forward into the very heart of darkness, or would they attempt to flee back into the unknown? But the sudden snap of a branch sent both of them crashing back to the present, a new threat approaching. Each second felt like a countdown. What's happening now? Rachel stammered, doubts creeping into her mind. The forest wasn't done with them yet. What other terrors lay hidden in its dark embrace? The underbrush rustled violently, sending a series of sharp twitches through Rachel. Her heart lurched as if trying to escape the tight prison of her chest. "Stay close, Jake," she hissed, pulling him close enough to feel his trembling form against her leg. From the gloom, a figure loomed, gliding between the trees like a specter. The shadows rippled unnaturally around it, a darkness deeper than that of the forest itself. Rachel's throat tightened. It was not just an animal. It was something else. A predatory awareness hung in the air, scream and laughter melding into a nightmarish symphony echoing from the very roots of the earth. "Mia!" Rachel cried again, her voice breaking, swallowed by the hungry night. With every passing moment, the forest inched closer, alive with the kind of menace only nature could cultivate, the sword bred in shadows and fed on fear. A sharp breath caught in her throat as the silhouette twisted, and she thought she saw familiar features, but they shifted too quickly, dissolving into a cloud of nightmares. No! She felt the ground slip beneath her feet. She was trapped in an inescapable snare of darkness. What was real anymore? What was a mere illusion? A loud thrashing sound erupted to the right, and before she could process, a massive form barreled through the underbrush, quick as lightning, hot breath punctuating the air like the beating of drums in a funeral march. The creature's eyes, bright and staring, burned into Rachel's. It was too close now, too predatory. "Jake, run!" she screamed, shoving her son toward a path she hoped led somewhere safe. But the words barely escaped her lips. She had never seen such terror in his eyes, wide, dark, reflecting the very essence of primal fear. They sprinted through the trees, dodging roots and branches clawing at them like fingers, the growl following close behind, stalking, curdling the very air around them. The laughter faded, replaced now with the pulse of heavy footsteps thundering after them. It was relentless, a wild thing hungry for prey. Every ounce of Rachel's being screamed for escape, but every instinct pulled her toward her daughter's voice. "Mia!" was all she could manage, again and again, a mantra repeating in her mind. But the response that came back was not her daughter's, but something low and guttural, a laugh wrapped in sneers that echoed around and around. It felt as if the forest itself was closing in, a predator that relished in their every gasp, every stumble, and then the underbrush grew dense, the trees thickened, weaving together a canopy that blocked out any glimmer of hope or sky. Rachel forced every ounce of strength left in her to climb over fallen logs, but the ground was unyielding. She slipped, tumbling sideways as if the forest itself was conspiring against her. Pain shot through her side, but there was no time to muster a cry. The growling was louder now, closer, vibrating through her bones. Jake's scream pierced the darkness, pulling Rachel from her daze. "Help!" Panic-stricken, she turned, her heart sinking as she saw him struggling against something in the shadows, something that wriggled and twisted like shadows themselves, yet so very solid. A dark tendril licked at his ankle, pulling him down into the dark earth. "No!" Fueled by sheer terror, Rachel lunged, plunging into the thick darkness, her hands grasping at empty air as the ground felt alive, as if it sought to swallow them whole. In that instant, doubt sliced through her mind. Was it real? Was this a trap laid by Thompson, or was the forest simply feeding off their fear, harvesting their desperation? Whatever twisted game it was playing, she understood they were at its mercy, but as she reached out for Jake, the darkness thickened around her. The shadows writhed and twisted, giggles echoing in a cacophony of misunderstanding. Shapes blurred and merged, blurring Rachel's perception. "I'm coming!" she cried out, but the words like a final prayer seemed to vanish into the choking darkness. With desperation pulling her deeper, she felt her son slipping away from her. The heat from his panic radiated like a beacon in the night, clear and bright. As she extended her fingers, brushing against his wrist, the ground quaked beneath them, cracking like the surface of a vast chasm, a roar booming like thunder. Just when she thought her fingers would clasp around her son, the shadows pulled him back, a force more ancient and wicked than any man could muster. Rachel's world warped as if reality itself lost its grip. She would have to choose, reach for Jake, or step back and survive against the chaos clawing for her soul. With every second that passed, the decision became clearer, but the path forward was obscured by terror, and the air thickened with malevolence. "Mom?" A voice croaked, frayed like an old rope. Rachel's heart stopped. Was it Mia? Or was this yet another cruel jest orchestrated by the unseen monster of the woods? The fear swelled, and with a final scream of defiance, she took a leap into the unknown. What fate awaited them in the heart of that sinister forest, waiting behind the veil of shadows? The shadows lunged at Rachel, a living mass of twisted nightmares, and for a moment, time stood still. She took a breath, steeling herself, the acrid scent of wet earth filling her lungs as she pushed deeper into the void of darkness. "Jake!" Her voice clawed its way through the suffocating grip of the night, but it was a whisper against the murmur of chaos. A flicker of movement caught her eye, and her hand brushed against a damp, jagged surface, an ancient tree, its bark slick and cold. She gripped it, thoughts racing. If she could just hold on long enough to find Jake, to anchor herself to something real. The darkness shuddered, and an otherworldly howl sliced through the air, echoing like a banshee's wail. It wrapped around her, infiltrating her mind. She stumbled forward, every instinct telling her to run, to escape this malevolence that oozed from the very ground they stood on. "Please, Mia." Rachel begged again, voice cracking, praying for a response, for anything, but what answered was not the voice of her daughter, it was the laughter again, twisted, mocking. It wrapped around her mind like a vice, distorting everything she thought she knew. The forest alive with whispers, shadows playing tricks, and confusion bubbling at the surface of her mind. Suddenly, a tug at her ankle pulled her back. The tendril coiled tighter, a creeping chill seeping up her leg. Rachel gasped, the sensation like ice water running through her veins. She looked down to see the darkness morphing, reaching out like a hand from the grave. "Stay away!" she shouted, kicking wildly, feeling the clamp loosen just long enough for her to break free. Panic surged within her as she bolted forward, each step heavy with dread. She had to reach Jake. He was all that mattered now. She cast her arms wide, touching the rough bark of the trees, the cool dampness grounding her thoughts even as fear threatened to cloud her mind. Each breath became laborious while adrenaline coursed through her veins like wildfire. The air crackled with an ominous energy, and she could feel the forest watching, calculating, waiting for her to falter. "Mom!" Jake's voice broke through the chaos, and Rachel froze, every muscle tensing at the vulnerability in that single word. "Help me!" The sound came from somewhere to her left, where the gnarled roots intertwined like skeletal hands clutching at the earth. "Hold on!" Rachel shouted, rushing toward the sound, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. As she leaned into the foliage, the ground shifted once more beneath her feet, and a blinding flash illuminated the dark. She shielded her eyes as a figure burst into view, a silhouette framed by the sudden light, a girl with tangled hair and wild eyes. It was Mia. "Mia!" Rachel cried. But before she could reach out, a thick fog rolled in, swallowing her daughter whole. The laughter returned, swirling around them, echoing off the trees like a horrible chant. Rachel's gut twisted. No! She felt a surge of power. The forest couldn't take her family. Not now. Not ever. The ground trembled violently again, and in the chaos, she could see shadows leaping. Rachel could only stand, rooted in place, fear clawing at her insides. Was it the forest trying to protect them or devour them? Was it an escape or a trap? Fractured images flooded her mind, of Mia's laughter on a summer afternoon, of Jake's innocent smile. Behind her, more shadows poured in, pooling together like a gathering storm, looming larger and larger. The oppressive atmosphere choked her breath. She could feel eyes unblinking, hungry staring from the press of darkness. "Stay with me!" Rachel screamed, stretching her arms toward Mia, Jake's voice still vibrant in the echoes of the forest. But the shadows were closing in, and there was nowhere left to run. The whispering laughter crescendoed. Join us, Rachel clenched her teeth, defiance burning in her heart. She would fight. She had to protect what was left. But before she could act, the ground beneath gave way, and with one final, desperate scream, she fell into the abyss of darkness. What awaited her on the other side? What would it take to reclaim her children from the hell the forest had summoned? The fall felt endless, a void engulfing her as Rachel screamed, the sound swallowed by the consuming darkness. The sensation of weightlessness froze her thoughts, a gut-wrenching fear hardening into icy impatience as she plummeted without end. Then, with a jarring impact, the earth struck back. She landed hard, the breath knocked from her lungs. Dazed, she pushed herself up, hands sinking into cold, slippery mud. The air was thick, damp, a smell of decay rising up as she struggled to her feet. Where was she? The world around shimmered with ghostly lights, dim, flickering, like stars in a sprawling universe of sorrow. For a moment, she thought she might be safe, but then the memories flooded back: Mia, Jake, the laughter and the shadows. Jake! She called, voice echoing, tremors of desperation seeping into her tone. A chilling wind swept through, rustling the leaves overhead, twisting their shapes into gnarled, claw-like forms. Shadows flickered at the corners of her vision, dancing tauntingly just beyond the reach of her gaze. She could almost hear them whispering, melded whispers promising answers laced with dread. Join us, Rachel shivered, trembling as she remembered the hold of despair, the clamoring voices of the forest. Trembling, she stepped forward, every pulse in her body lowering her guard against the unknown. Were Mia and Jake somewhere nearby, or had they already been consumed by this nightmare? With every step, the air thickened. Small flashes of light occasionally danced in front of her, blinding her momentarily before vanishing like fireflies. No. Not fireflies. Souls. Their desperate wails hung heavily in her ears, turning the sharp throb of worry in her heart to a syncopated rhythm of fear. Suddenly, she stumbled into a clearing, an expansive patch of darkness concentrated in an eerie shape. It was a blackened altar, stones slick with a viscous liquid that glimmered under the faint light. Eyes widened, Rachel felt the air chill to an unbearable temperature. The altar pulsed, sending a shudder through the ground beneath her and filling her heart with the weight of something ancient, something hungry. Mom! Help! The cry echoed around her, jarring her from shock. It was Jake. Jake! She turned, searching frantically for him in the stifling gloom. The call had come from beyond the altar, beyond the shadows. Gasping, Rachel pushed toward the sound, frantic fingers brushing over stones. Stay away from there. A hoarse voice rasped, echoing through her mind like thunder. It was the spirit of the forest, alive with malice, and she could feel its fury rising as she dared to intrude. Ignoring the warning, she lunged toward the voices, her heart and hope battling the rising dread that bubbled in her throat. I'm coming, Jake. Just hold on. The wind began to howl again, more feral this time, and the darkness pressed in, smothering the cries that had fueled her savage determination. Around her, the shadows entwined, thickening, curling like smoke. They reached for her, brushing against her skin with icy fingers, and the laughter returned, the horrifying sound of her children's innocence twisted into something unspeakable. Fear tore through her as she glimpsed a flicker, a shadow breaking apart to reveal a figure. It was Mia, her face pale, eyes wide and terrified. But before Rachel could call out, tendrils of smoke surged around her, wrapping her tighter, pulling her back toward that accursed altar. Mom! Don't let it take me! Mia screamed, her voice shrill against the backdrop of chaos. Time seemed to curl in on itself as Rachel fought against the pull. She was torn between two worlds, the murky altar boiling with intent, and the soft, frightened pleas of her daughter. A choice loomed before her, but how could she decide? With warmth slipping through her fingers, she looked into the dense mass of shadows. Something ferocious gripped her heart, a realization crashing upon her like a rogue wave. Don't let them win. The words came from deep within her, fierce and relentless. Gathering her courage, Rachel raised her voice, directing it into the darkness. Enough. You can't have my children. The shadows writhed, furious, and a surge of light enveloped her. It felt like hope but tasted like despair. The ground heaved, and the laughter turned into a deafening roar as the air exploded around her. Then, silence.it was a silence filled with anticipation, a dreadful waiting. What would emerge from the stillness? And as Rachel caught her breath, the shadows began to converge once more, and the haunting chorus swelled louder, dragging her into the very depths of chaos. Could she hold on to her light? Or was she already too late? The stillness shattered like glass. A rush of shadows swirled around Rachel, dark tendrils grasping for her, seeking to extinguish the flickering light of defiance she'd summoned. She felt the icy fingers of the forest spirit brush against her face, a cruel whisper hissing promises of surrender. "Join us," it said, laced with his children's voices innocent yet twisted. The darkness rippled, vibrant and alive, and Rachel fought to remain anchored amidst the onslaught. "Jake! Mia!" She screamed, the words ripping from her throat. Light flared again, blinding in its intensity, pushing the shadows back momentarily. She took her chance, her feet moving instinctively toward the altar. What lay there was more than stone and malice, it was a gateway, a predator's mouth opening wide to claim its prey. Steam rose in thick plumes, wrapping around her as she moved closer. Each breath filled her lungs with damp, rotten air, and her heart pounded with desperation and dread. The altar pulsed violently, thrumming like a heartbeat. With each thud, the ground trembled beneath her feet. Had she stepped into a heartbeat of some ancient creature, waiting for its moment to awaken? Rachel shook her head vigorously, banishing the thought. Her children were close. She could feel them, trapped in this nightmare with her, their energies tied to the altar somehow. Beyond the altar, a shape began to solidify in the shadows. The silhouettes of two figures, small, familiar. "Rachel, help us," the voices echoed, merging back into a distorted semblance of harmony and agony. "Mia! Jake!" Her voice split the air, raw and anguished. "Hold on, I'm coming." As she reached the edge of the altar, the gnarled roots shot out like fingers, snagging her ankles, pulling her down. The mud beneath her felt alive, seeping into her shoes, binding her to its curse. Panic surged through her body. She kicked, fought against the grip, heart racing. Where was the strength she had felt moments ago? "Mom! No!" The cries flashed through her mind like shooting stars, bright and fleeting, but still guiding. With all her strength, Rachel pulled away from the relentless hold of the roots, digging her fingers into the slick stone of the altar. "Get away from them!" she declared, her voice breaking through the cacophony of anguish. She knew the shadows recognized her defiance. They paused for a breath, as if considering their next move. Suddenly, she felt a shift in the air. The forest was paying attention. Voices erupted in chaos, a symphony of anger. What were they? Victims? Or were they the true horrors, the lamenting spirits of the darkness woven into this ghastly tapestry? Responding to the shift, Rachel unleashed a desperate scream, pouring every ounce of love for her children into her voice. "You will not take them. I won't let you." The shadows recoiled, wailing as if wounded, losing some of their strength. But something deep within her questioned if they were truly capable of feeling pain. Had they already taken too much? Rachel's heart raced, mind spinning. Was she fighting against an ocean of souls trapped within? The altar pulsated again, a slow, menacing beat, signaling something deadly, but before Rachel could process her next steps, the ground beneath them convulsed violently, and the earth split, revealing a chasm. The shadows surged away from the altar, swirling like a tornado of darkness, desperately trying to flee. "Mom!" Mia's voice pierced through the chaos, calling from the brink, error lacing her words. "Help us!" Rachel's heart clenched. She looked over her shoulder, torn. In that moment, uncertainty twisted in her gut. What lay beyond the chasm, freedom or deeper despair? Before she could decide, a deafening roar erupted from the shadows, pulling back, mixing with the laughter she had tried so hard to drown out. They were desperate, and their desperation was intoxicating. Rachel felt their strength swirling like a storm, and somewhere deep down, she felt herself teetering. What would she sacrifice to save them, to truly save them? As the shadows pushed against her, drawing nearer, Rachel prepared for a leap into the unknown. Would she stand firm against the dark, or would she plunge into its depths to save her children forever? With one last breath, Rachel charged forward, a burst of hope colliding with fear, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The air twisted around Rachel as she leaped into the chasm, the shadows screaming in discontent. For a moment, time warped, suspending her in place between light and darkness, between hope and dread. The pit opened beneath her like a gaping maw, ever hungry. She felt weightless, caught in the chaotic winds of anguish swirling above her, then she plunged into the abyss, and a cold darkness engulfed her, the world around her twisted into serpentine shapes, fluctuating between forms both grotesque and beautiful. Visions flickered past faces distorted in terror, pleading eyes, anguished screams merging into a cacophony of despair. Whispers taunted her, promising freedom if only she would let go, if only she would join them. The spirit of the forest wrapped its icy fingers around her mind, trying to pry it open, trying to tell her what lay ahead, but all Rachel could think of were her children, Mia and Jake, their fragile forms fighting against the tide of shadows. Memories flooded her, warm afternoons in the park, the sound of their laughter, the sparkle in their eyes. She was not ready to give that up, not now. The pull of the shadows was nearly overpowering, dragging her deeper into the abyss. Rachel fought against it, her spirit igniting with renewed vigor. She reached out through the darkness, her hand finding purchase on something solid, a root, wrapped in ancient energy, pulsating like a living thing. With a fierce determination, she gripped it, feeling its strength surge through her. Suddenly, she was yanked from the void, jolted back upward with an explosive force, catapulted towards a sliver of light breaking through the encroaching darkness. The shadows flailed in furious rage, clawing at her heels, but they were losing their power. The light grew in intensity, blinding, and Rachel propelled herself forward with all that she had. With one final burst, she broke through, landing hard upon the altar. It groaned beneath her, surfaces slick and pulsing. The figures of her children stood before her, fear-filled eyes wide with hope. "Mom," they cried out, reaching toward her. Their voices were music against the thundering shadows that swirled menacingly around them. "I'm here. I'm here." Rachel's voice cut through the noise, fierce and protective. She extended her arms, pulling them close. The grip she felt on them was tangible yet ephemeral, as if they were both there and not there. Heart pounding, she turned to face the oncoming tide of darkness. "Get away from my children!" she cried, her voice rising above the fury. The shadows recoiled slightly, hissing in fury. A clawed shadow shot forward, aiming to snatch Jake, but Rachel, bolstered by the bond she shared with her children, deflected it. The air crackled with the power of her defiance. "Mia, grab Jake!" she commanded, and without hesitation, Mia gripped her brother's hand as the shadows surged. They could feel the tendrils fluttering against their skin like a swarm of angry bees. Rachel took a step back, fumbling for anything, some shred of power within her. The altar thrummed beneath her with a deeper rhythm, beckoning to her with a frequency that pulled her in. It was sinister yet familiar, a pulse echoing the heartbeats of those trapped, tormented souls. Rachel's eyes widened in realization. These were the voices of the forest, the trapped remnants suffocated beneath the weight of despair. If they could merge their strength, they might stand a chance against this malevolent force. "We have to fight together," she shouted, feeling urgency crawl under her skin. Their bond could become their weapon, but just then, the altar erupted in a blinding flash, and the shadows lunged forward with renewed fury, driven to reclaim what they believed was theirs. Rachel felt the heat fade from her heart, her resolve wavering. As despair seeped in, she wondered. Was the light a beacon of hope or an illusion meant to draw her into deeper darkness? The altar beneath her trembled, and the shadows twisted with sinister delight. Time stretched again as Rachel and her children stood on the edge of an unfathomable choice. Would they sink into the abyss of despair or burn with the fury of their love to break free? Before she could decide, a chilling voice erupted from the shadows, promising secrets lost to time, intentions wrapped in malice. "Your children belong to us," and with that, panic flashed across Rachel's features as the shadows closed in, leaving her to wonder if they would emerge as saviors or victims. Her next breath could be the last. What would they have to face to claim their freedom? In the heart of the suffocating shadows, Rachel felt both terror and defiance swirl within her. The dark tendrils wrapped around her ankles like icy fingers, trying to drag her back into the chasm of despair, but she pressed forward. "You will not take them!" she screamed, fury igniting her every word. Her children stood beside her, their hands tightly clasped. The altar pulsed with the weight of all the fears, all the lost souls trapped beneath it, their muffled cries echoing in her ears. Each vibration resonated with Rachel's desperation. She had to break the chains binding them. "Mia, Jake. Listen," Rachel urged, feeling the warmth of their presence solidify her resolve. "We need to summon our love. Focus on each other." She could sense the shadows tightening around them, but their unity shimmered like a beacon amidst the darkness, and she clung to it. "Together." Mia echoed, her voice steady despite the quaver of fear. Jake nodded, eyes wide with determination. They stood, three hearts aligned against the roiling terror surrounding them. With that shared strength, Rachel closed her eyes, envisioning every joyful memory that had illuminated their lives: summer picnics, laughter chasing away storm clouds, and quiet moments huddled together on cold nights. She let the magic of those moments swell within her. "Now," she commanded, opening her eyes wide, "feel it. Let it burn." The air crackled around them as shimmering light began to pour from their joined hands. It was a brilliant glow, igniting the darkness. Shadows recoiled, hissing in painful protest. The altar thrummed louder, matching the rhythm of their defiance. "Mom, what is happening?" Jake gasped, bright-eyed and unencumbered by doubt. "It feels amazing. Stay strong. We're creating our own light," Rachel shouted, her heart racing as they took a step forward, the energy of their love swirling, forming a protective barrier around them. With their combined voices, cries of hope and unyielding love, they realized they could fight back. A pulse surged, pushing harder against the tide of shadows. Rachel felt as if she were breathing life into the very essence of her family. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of fury and confusion. "Mom!" Mia's voice sliced through the chaos, determination shining. "Together." "Yes. On 3. Rachel took a deep breath. 1, 2, 3. A blast of radiant light erupted, piercing through the darkness, exposing the anguished faces of the souls trapped beneath. The power surged, blasting the shadows apart like smoke before a mighty wind. For a moment, everything stood still: Rachel, Mia, and Jake glowing brighter than the dark that had threatened to consume them. The shadows writhed, angry and in retreat, leaving behind the haunting echoes of a life woven from sorrow. In the luminous heartbeat of their bond, Rachel felt the spirits begin to break free, released from the grip that had held them captive for so long. A final, desperate surge from the forest howled around them, a last-ditch effort to reclaim what it had lost. But Rachel was focused, no longer a mere bystander in this sinister game. With her children by her side, they pushed forward, and a torrent of blinding light erupted forth. Its intensity burned the darkness away, fracturing the very foundation of the shadows that had ensnared them. With a final, earth-shattering roar, the darkness collapsed. The void consumed itself, dragging with it the echoes of their fears, laughter woven with loss, and screams muffled by time. The shadowy grip loosened, and Rachel, moving reflexively, reached for her children. They stumbled backwards as the altar cracked, fissures racing through the surface. A bright light, freeing and warm, erupted upward. "Hold on to me," Rachel commanded as they scrambled. In this blinding light, hope surged alongside the crushing weight of despair. Then one last explosion of light illuminated the landscape, and everything shifted. They landed not in the forest of nightmares, but back at the edge of the woods, panting on the ground. Sunlight bathed them in a warm glow, birds sang sweetly above. The air felt different, heavy with stillness and yet serenely alive. Rachel blinked, her heart racing in disbelief. "Mia! Jake!" she gasped, pulling them both into a fierce hug, tears streaming down her face. Did we win?" Mia breathed, looking up with wide eyes. "We did," Rachel confirmed, breathless, we fought darkness together. They held each other tightly, the bond forged in terror now an unbreakable thread woven from love and hope. But they knew the woods still held secrets, remnants of shadows lurking at the fringes, threats that could rise again if they weren't careful. They stood, hand in hand, the forest's haunting whispers fading behind them. Rachel took a deep breath, the air sweet and clean, filling her with renewed vigor. They had faced the unknown and emerged victorious. They were survivors, reclaiming their light, and as they turned away from the woods, their hearts beat steadily, echoing with the promise of brighter days ahead. But before you go, listen up. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss a single exclusive story. Smash that like button to help spread our message and flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the ending. What do you think these characters will do next? Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. You're a true fan, and your support matters. Go, go, go!